So now let's get to the hot topic of the day. So Alex Honnold, perhaps the greatest rock climber in the world, just scaled the Taipei 101 skyscraper in Taiwan, which happens to be the first building that he's ever free soloed. This was a live event on Netflix where thousands of people witnessed this firsthand, including his wife. I don't know how she could stomach it, but it was entertaining for the rest of us. So first off, what are your thoughts on this whole event?
Well, I did see Free Solo. My takeaway was that Alex is very meticulous in his planning. And that's also a metaphor for life, right? I mean, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And I can guarantee you when he started climbing that building that he had every hold in his mind exactly where he was going to, go with things. And just that's the way his brain works. And like you say, El Capitan was much more of a challenge because of the dynamic nature of it's a piece of granite. It's not gonna have, the uniformity of a building. But either way, that Alex planned this to the smallest minutia because his life is on the line. And, he's got people looking up to him, literally his wife and, family. The way he approaches this is absolutely so dynamic. The risk is there, but when you plan to his level of planning, the risk is clearly mitigated and amazing things happen. And I'm going to go right back to the saying, where your attention goes, your energy flows. I can guarantee you he never looked down. He was always looking up at the summit because that's his end goal. And the second you start looking down, that's when you freeze up. There's many climbers that, they have the expertise, but psychologically, that second that you look down, you realize, oh my God, they realize the consequences and their energy flows that way instead of, to the heights of the summit. The man is amazing. He's an amazing role model for overcoming. Most people, that's one of their primary fears, is the fear of heights, myself included. And of course, the second you start looking down, that fear is going to emerge. So I can guarantee you that he doesn't look down, he's looking up.
Very well said. It's a very high vibe takeaway, and I'm actually glad that you kind of see it the way I see it. I watched a short on YouTube where Alex was asked if he thinks that climbing that building was worth the risk. And he said that he has this, I think he calls it the James Bond principle. He says yes to cool life experiences. If he's asked, do you want to fly in a helicopter? Yes. Do you want to go to a black tie gala on a yacht? Yes. Do you want to free solo a building? Yes. He believes that life is all about cool experiences and about overcoming fears to accomplish something that's meaningful. So, as we already discussed, in order for him to be able to do this, he has to expand his confidence while reducing his fear. And he says that he rehearses every micro move that he needs to make on the mountain. And as he gets more comfortable, his confidence grows and his awareness to every little thing expands. He does a lot of visualization, which is also a form of meditation that does help somewhat mitigate the risk, because it is a lot of pre-planning and thinking about what exactly he needs to do in order to accomplish the goal. And as we said in the movie Free Solo, Alex and some of the other climbers that were featured in that movie, they shared that a lot of their friends have died rock climbing, especially the free solo climbers. While most consider it to be tragic, Alex, on some level, believes that they died doing what they loved. And so in his mind, it would be way worse to not have taken the risk.
Mm-hmm.
I read a Facebook post that came out before he did the climb in Taiwan, and they framed it as an American climber will soon attempt one of the most daring feats on live television, climbing a 101-story skyscraper in front of what could be millions of viewers. So the comments on this post were super divided, almost right down the middle. Some people think he's crazy, while others think he's a marvel. Some of the positive comments were referring to Alex Honnold as a climber dad of two, instead of honoring that he accomplished the most incredible human feat of all time, free soloing El Cap, is wild and disrespectful. One of the negative comments was, Darwin has entered the chat. So it just shows you how people will look at the same exact thing and view it completely opposite. they'll see it as, it's not, they say the crazy thing is that this risk is optional. But in his world, I agree with what you said. He takes so much time and energy to plot out every move and to visualize it and to work at it, that to him it's like much more of a controlled risk than it would be for us if we just decided to climb a mountain one day.
And the other thing you mentioned, it is like a meditation when you're climbing. It has to be. It has to be because you have to have your full focus on that mountain or on that building. And guess what? When you meditate, you become calm. And when you become calm, you become much more efficient in whatever you do. So clearly, I mean, yes, the risk is there, but he's done it enough where he can get into that zone, as they say, the flow state, that it becomes more of an artistic expression. The climb is something that, you're expressing yourself to the world and showing the world that, you can overcome these obstacles. To me, it's a grand inspiration to see a human being push their physical boundaries, but it's more than physical. It's up here. It's psychological. It's getting, you realize you could die, man, but you don't think about that. You think about making it to the summit. It's such a powerful thing when you slow down, because I guarantee you, he's not climbing up there as fast as he can. He's doing it in slow motion, in a slow motion meditation. And when you slow down, man, you just become so much more efficient and so much more calm that you're gonna do it. You're gonna get it done. And that's what he's done, in his life. And again, he's just an inspiration to so many people on so many levels.
I totally agree. I mean, it is exactly that process. What they say when it comes to athletes, the great ones in the highest, most like game on the line moment, everything slows down for them. And they're able to sort of see much more clearly what they need to do. Whereas, those who are not quite dialed in, it becomes faster than ever. They take a step back to throw the ball, boom, they're already tackled. And so, but I always like to say that free soloing is the ultimate sport, because if you make one wrong move, you die. So imagine if Michael Jordan had to make every single shot that he took in a game, because if he missed one, the result would be the loss of his life. It's that kind of a reality for them. And I agree with you. I admire him too. So, because I believe that most people are trapped by their fears. It could be as simple as being afraid to be social at a party, or to learn a new skill, or in the bigger picture, to pursue our bliss. So we tend to limit ourselves and block ourselves from new experiences, especially as we get older. I think when we're young, we have that free spirit, running around, try different things. Don't be afraid of what other people think. Don't be afraid of being judged. But as we get older, we start to have awarenesses, and we put way too much emphasis on what other people think. So I admire that he can sort of block that out and say, I know myself. I know what I want to do, and I know that I can do it.
There's a physical component as well to those limitations, but I think, like you say, for many people, it's mostly up here. It's the psychological limitations that are limiting us, these ceilings that we put on ourselves, and it just limits us, on so many domains. And you see it quite often in a lot of things. People getting stuck in career paths that they're very unhappy with, but they just accept it as like, oh, this is what I'm going to do because it's providing me security. But is it really? We need to take those risks sometimes, and sometimes we need to be pushed out of our comfort zone. There were times when I was in positions, and I lost that position, and I was terminated, and and I was like so mad at the world, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then you realize a few years later, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because so many other doors opened up. So again, it's just how you frame things. Are you going to get stuck, or are you going to get unstuck and see things as there's always opportunities out there, as long as you frame things as, hey, this is a challenge that can be overcome, but you got to step up to the plate and take a couple of swings.
Yeah, well said. I think that goes along with the theme of risk, which is for people who get too comfortable and they don't even want to look outside that bubble that they're in. That is perhaps the greatest risk of all, especially when it comes to ideas. If you stop being open to new ideas, it becomes an echo chamber. And that's the problem with a lot of thinking today is that people, they just go into that one bubble and they hear one perspective and they never look outside.
You have to know that you don't know. You have to know that there's so much to learn, and sometimes your perspective, as sound as it may seem, you have to be able to pivot and say, well, you know what, maybe that perspective isn't all that I've made it out to be. Sometimes we just don't want to admit that, our perspective is maybe not the best perspective, but you kind of like, no, I'm going to stick to my guns because that's what I believed for all these years. And then, you really, really do get stuck. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Trill. You've got to be open, and you've got to have that mind that just says, hey, man, I'm open to the universe. I'm open to other ideas, other dimensions, other perspectives.
That's true. Yeah, I think we all should reserve the right to evolve, to change our minds when new information is presented to us. And I think the biggest problem is that too many people become very stubborn and stuck in something, and then we put up a wall and we're not going to look. And this goes for this situation too. It's like trying to convince, I wouldn't want to say convince, trying to convey to people who look at Alex Honnold as crazy or as too risky in this moment. That's you can try to say, hey, look, in his reality, he takes these steps to make sure that he's ready to accomplish this type of a goal. So to him, it's not any more risky than it is for you to drive to work in heavy traffic. It's all about like his own experience and his own preparation. Now, on that note, as you know, I once used to do a lot of risky things when I was in my late teens. We all think we're immortal back then.
Yeah, we do.
One of the big stories that we've shared. I once ventured out onto a ledge of the 19th floor of the Contemporary Hotel in Disney World, and I almost fell to my death.
Jeez.
And it did really reset my mindset about it because, I saw this like ledge and I thought I can go from one side to the other. But all of a sudden this gust of wind came up and I lost my balance and I had to, at the last second, dive back to where the stairwell was. And I barely was able to grab it. And I know you always get skittish when I talk about this, right?
Oh yeah, man. No, it's an amazing story, and when you're young, you don't do risk management, right? You just go, oh, that looks like fun. I'm going to do, we've all done it. We've all done stupid stuff. But that one, that could have cost you big time.
Well, that was the turning point for me because it was the 19th floor and it was, if I would have fallen, I think the probability of death would have been 99.9%. So I recognized that. And later on, when I went back to my hotel room, I could not fall asleep the entire night because I was just sitting there going, oh my goodness, like, was that worth it? Make a couple of friends while I'm on a vacation. I kind of trying to impress them or push my limits, whichever the way it went. I almost fell off that building. And if I didn't get somewhat lucky and grab onto the railing, that would have been it. So, I learned a valuable lesson that day about risk and where my limitations should be. Would I have done that if I had a harness? Hey, yeah, sure. If we all had a protective harness, there's a lot more things that I would be wanting and willing to do. But that was just an impromptu moment so many things to consider. The ledge could have collapsed beneath me. Just so many things to consider. You live and learn. And luckily I was able to live through that because, so let me just jump onto this. I think this is kind of leading to two things. One of them being another story that I saw that's sort of based on this, which is a question someone raised. They say, how do you become brave? So the original poster in this case said, I admit that I'm not a brave person. I feel panicked in simple situations. I easily give up and am constantly overwhelmed. My problem may be that I'm overthinking things and my own inner voice may be bringing me down. So many times when I feel low, I try to pick myself up, but I realize deep down that I can't do it. I don't have the confidence or the willpower. So I ask, how does one become brave?
Baby steps. Baby steps. A lot of us are introverted. I'm one of those people. And by the way, Todd Berry was also very introverted when he shared with me towards the end of his life, the gentleman that started this meditation circle, one of people's greatest fears is public speaking, right? And albeit, it's a meditation circle, but you still have to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone. And, there takes a certain amount of bravery to do that. Todd exemplified that by doing this for over a decade. It was not easy for him. He shared that with me. He said, I'm an introvert, but he saw the value of doing this. So he took small steps. He didn't just jump into this. It's a celebration. Once you start to, move forward, it's very fulfilling. It's like nothing, people can pay you money, people can give you accolades, but intrinsically you can feel the growth when you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And that bravery, it's amplified by your actions. Some very magical things happen. So, it may not seem brave to lead people, but, you kind of open yourself up a little bit. And, you do have to have a certain amount of courage. I've evolved. It's helped me to evolve. And I understand now why he did it for so long. But again, I think it's baby steps. You do it slowly. I didn't just jump into it. I start studying more, really trying to evolve as a human being, because you never forget, to remain a student while you teach others.
One of these comments I really like, it says, competence leads to confidence. Learn a topic inside and out. Train your skills until you master them. Your knowledge and skills will make you unstoppable. Another comment says, mastering something, even in solitude, builds baseline confidence. When you're great at a skill like, say, programming, you carry a sense of worth both among peers and in everyday life. That belief, I'm capable, I'm valuable, gives you something to stand on, even socially. It might not make you instantly charismatic, but it helps you carry yourself with pride. I can agree, like, if we have something that we feel we're good at, it does sort of help our self-esteem a little bit. It makes us feel like, we at least can know that about ourselves, as opposed to if we don't have anything. And then the last thing I'll say is, bravery is not the absence of fear or doubt. It's when you have fear and doubt, but do it anyway. The voice in your head thing that they mentioned, obviously that's a big part of it too. It's how we speak with ourselves. If we're compassionate and kind to ourselves as opposed to berating ourselves, we start creating those moments in our life because our subconscious hears everything that we say and it becomes a program. So let's just say that a climber had this like script in his mind where he says, I'm very good at climbing, but there's always a part where I'm just going to always fall. I'm always going to lose my grip at the worst moment. That's a dangerous sentiment to be in there because that will tend to come true more than not.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%.
Even if Alex had fallen off El Capitan or Taipei 101, I believe that his spirit wouldn't have perished, because I believe we're all energy, sort of eternal beings. I believe his soul would have continued on. Yes, it would have been a challenge for his friends and his family, but that's kind of the Earth experience we all share. What I wanted to say is this all kind of also leads to the fact, like we already said, that Alex does a form of meditation, which is rooted in visualization, but in order to calm his nerves and focus his mind, there has to be some form of a meditative state he goes into. So as a mindfulness meditation facilitator, I thought I'd ask you, what are the top 3 or 4 benefits to meditation?
Thank you. Thanks for asking that, Trill. Just slowing down, focusing, anchoring your consciousness to your breath brings so many benefits. The parasympathetic nervous system is activated. And when that happens, man, it's that rest and digest mode where your blood pressure is lowered, heartbeat is lowered. You're basically giving your whole body a break. And, if you think about it, you're a host. What goes on up here in your mind, you're hosting literally trillions of cells in your body, all working in harmony. So when you slow down, you're giving your cells on a cellular level, your microbiome, all this amazing life that's within us. It's a universe within us. And when you consciously slow down, you're giving everything in your body a chance to be in harmony. And when that happens, man, you're going to work at a very optimal state in life. So to me, meditation is one of the keys to really tuning in to becoming, the best that you can be. And unfortunately, like I said, too many people just get caught up in the race out there, and they forget that, this living entity within us. Everybody in here needs a break. And the way you do that is by consciously slowing down and just meditating. And again, yeah, it's a great metaphor. What Alex did, just by slowing down, you become so much more effective at being able to conquer the mountain, conquer the building, and just that calmness, that inner calmness is power.
Very beautifully said.
We're gonna go.